Hello, welcome to Inspirational Transformational TV show. Amy Whitney here today with my special guest, Natasha Kyssa. Natasha is what I term the Canadian living food goddess. She is a shining example of what it is to live the living food lifestyle. Natasha moved herself from a place of darkness, depression, eating disorders, to where she is today, which is a leader in the raw food, living food community. To hear her story and to see an amazing example of what living food can do for you in your life, stay tuned and enjoy this interview with Natasha. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
What I'd like to start with is basically just a bit of a background story for the audience. And you have quite an interesting one. So you were raised in Montreal by European parents,
Right.
and launched yourself into the international modeling circuit. Do you want to tell a little bit of history from around that point?
Sure. I mean, actually, I was born in Montreal, but raised in Ottawa.
Okay.
By European parents. We had a lot of all homemade, foods prepared by my mother, including, she would make her own yogurt, and we weren't vegetarian, but everything was unprocessed, natural, a lot of whole grains. So I really wasn't exposed to processed foods until I was actually 17 years old, and I moved out with some friends, and of course got completely, caught into, fast foods, craft dinner, all that stuff for about 2.5 years. And during that time, I packed on about 35 pounds. First time. Before that, it was always a struggle to keep my weight on. But more than the weight, I really noticed that my mood level really plummeted, and I suffered with depression pretty much my whole life. Those 2.5 years away from my family, I really made the connection between the food I ate and how I felt emotionally. So I moved back home with my mother 2.5 years later, and just naturally went back to my fresh salads, which was always my favorite part of the meal, and just eating more raw plant foods, and the weight just came off naturally, and above all, I just felt more positive and just lighter and brighter. In my early 20s, I launched an international fashion career as a model, and I was jet setting around the world. I was based in Europe, and as well as spent quite a few years in Japan and Asia. Very hard lifestyle. I mean, hard to eat well and balanced, and so I got into the whole routine of living on coffee, smoking cigarettes, not the best diet. And probably after a couple of years, or towards the end of my career, I, like a lot of models, developed an eating disorder.
Yeah. And at that point, when you realized you had an eating disorder, was that a pivot point in your life, or did you travel down that road for quite some time?
I traveled down it. I tried to get out of it, but it was just so hard. I was actually swinging between anorexia and bulimia, so it wasn't just one eating disorder, it was two, so it was very complex. I didn't really understand what was going on at the time. So I would go on extended periods of fasting, but not healthy fasting. I mean, I would be drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, and doing whatever I could not to eat. And then something would set me off, and then I would go into a complete binge for, it could go up to a month or so. So it was really swinging between two extremities. Right. And it was really only when I picked up one of Dr. Ann Wigmore's books that I reverted back to eating more fresh, raw plant foods.
So was that a pivot point in your life? You picked up Dr. Ann Wigmore's book and you went, aha, there is a different way?
Yeah, I knew it on some level, and I always felt my healthiest eating fresh foods, always. I mean, I even got into the macrobiotic diet for quite a few years, and it did help in that I eliminated a lot of the processed foods. However, it was all cooked and heavy on the grain, so very hard, especially with someone that's very sensitive. So, I knew that it was the way to go. And when I picked up Dr. Ann Wigmore's book, it really not only resonated, but it was a reminder. Yeah. So from then on, I began to eat, and really try to eat as much as I could, fresh and raw, really focusing on easy to digest nourishment, sprouts, soaked nuts and seeds, even a lot of fermented foods. So that really did help, as well as blending and juicing.
So for the audience who doesn't know Dr. Ann Wigmore, do you want to tell a little bit about what her work was?
Okay, yeah, she was the pioneer of the living foods lifestyle, and she was well before her time. I mean, she was the one that really started helping people through the raw diet and beyond the raw diet, because, I mean, raw is great, it's better than cooked, obviously, but you could even go further. And she really used a lot of wheatgrass, as well as energy soup and Rejuvelac, just to help people heal themselves from various illnesses, digestive disorders, a lot of health issues, including cancer. So she was really the grandmother of the living foods lifestyle. They still have the Ann Wigmore Institute in Puerto Rico, which I go to every year. Oh, wow. Very special place, very loving, and it's really going back to the simplicity of the whole lifestyle.
So when you say the living food lifestyle, what exactly is that?
It's basically a vegetarian, vegan diet, and predominantly nuts, seeds, fresh fruits, and vegetables, but all prepared in a manner that really are more enzyme rich and easier on the digestive system.
And it is true that you can heal yourself with food?
Absolutely.
And you've seen it firsthand?
I've seen it firsthand.
And that's how you healed your illness, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And currently you have a detox manual, and you help others through this, is that right?
Yes.
Do you want to share a little bit about your manual and what
Sure, yes. It's my book, The Simply Raw Living Foods Detox. And it actually started with just 4 pages. I had a test pilot group, and because I really saw a need for people, to shift their habits, their eating habits. So it started with 4 pages, and the book evolved over 2.5 years. And I would facilitate groups, and I was seeing these amazing, it's a 28-day detox program. Okay. And it's a 28-day program using fresh living foods, raw plant foods, to both not just cleanse the body, but nourish really at a cellular level. So you become more mindful. Each week has a different set of guidelines. The first week, for example, you have, you're easing into the program gently, so 80% raw, 100% vegan, going into 100% raw vegan diet, and then 3rd week is really going into a living foods diet, where you're really eliminating more of the concentrated foods, the dehydrated foods, and the foods that a lot of raw foodists tend to get stuck on, right? Yeah. So the body is amazing. It's a self-healing, mechanism, and we all have that innate ability. It's just we need to give our bodies what it requires in a form that it can utilize. Yeah. So I see a lot of amazing results with my clients. We facilitate it in the group setting or online as well. I take clients all around the globe. But some of the benefits are just things from more energy, that's usually the first one that people really notice, softer skin, a real sparkle to the eye, digestive issues alleviated, and then you're alkalizing, mineralizing the body. There goes my cat. So there's so many benefits. People are more positive, even blood cholesterol balances out. It's just food, and unfortunately most of us aren't eating real food anymore.